Hey, if you're like me and kinda mentally challenged, you might have developed some interest in H.P. Lovecraft's myth about Cthulhu and the whole cult around it. I don't know what it is about that topic, but it's just obscure enough that the little part in my brain that also tells me to grab the police officer's gun starts to get loud. But sometimes interest doesn't translate to getting off my fat ass and actually informing myself about the given topic of interest. Yeah, that basically describes me and my relationship with Cthulhu. I find the terrifying primordial colors, who's canonically responsible for countless deaths and more suffering than you can imagine, intriguing, but not intriguing enough. It doesn't matter that he rings in the apocalypse and has a cult-like following, of which apparently some are immortal. I'd rather lay in bed and search for the next manga my brain can consume and forget about in the next 2 to 3 business days. Wait. Call of Cthulhu is a manga adaptation of the short story Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. That's this fuck guy right here. And please don't Google what his cat's name was. I don't know if the adaptation faithfully transcribed the contents of the original, since I'm not invested enough to read the source material, but the story of the manga is as follows. After the death of his late grand-uncle George Angel, a renowned professor and archaeologist, Francis Thurston discovers notes left behind by said professor. These documents, divided into 3 separate episodes, contain information on a cult only known as the Cthulhu cult. That's how the story is set. As Francis finding and reading through these documents, learning about something he shouldn't have, with only 2 things connecting each story. A bas-relief depicting a titan described as a mix between a dragon, octopus and human, and a single sentence. Yeah, I'm not gonna read that. I can't read that. I can't. Try it. You won't. In the story, during a specific time of the year, special people sometimes get dreams. Dreams of a city with strange monoliths surrounding them. Green slime oozing from these structures, covering the hieroglyphs omnipresent in this strange city. From below the ground, they only hear a single sound. Cthulhu Phtagen. The people that get these dreams change, either going insane and unaliving themselves at the next best opportunity, or they become obsessed with them. As in the first episode, where a young sculptor crafted the aforementioned bas-relief in his sleep, during which he continuously dreamt of a monster covering the skies. He seeks help from the professor, who, by this point, had already heard of the Cthulhu cult and tried to help the young man called Henry Wilcox. They attempt to decipher the dreams he gets night after night, without much success. Only after Henry gets a high fever does something change. Henry doesn't remember anything. Strange occurrences like these happen all over the world. Eskimos telling of rituals done by other tribes, sacrificial practices in the swamps of Louisiana, the crime scenes riddled with fetishes depicting the same monster on Henry Wilcox's bas-relief. Somehow, this religion has spread among the underground of human civilization, their traces found all over the world, completely hidden from the common eye. But how did this cult spread so far, even as to having a sort of headquarter hidden in Saudi Arabia? According to the surviving cult members, the dreams and visions are as old as humanity. They tell of the great old ones having come from the stars, ruling over the earth and their great cities. Only because the stars aren't right can the old ones not live, sleeping in their houses in Riley, waiting. The city they call home having been swallowed by the waves. Someday they will resurrect, and meanwhile the cult has to keep their language alive. The story continues with Francis finding the diary of a dead sailor who presumably found said island, which emerged during an earthquake. But I'm not gonna summarize the whole fucking book. Read it, it's 7 chapters. But even if it's only 7 chapters,
It's so good.
while the narrative is kinda weird with a story inside a story and then another story, it still grabs you by your testicles and doesn't let go. I've read a few horror manga, but rarely have I been more creeped out by the underlying plot telling of a cult, rather than the caricatures of eldritch horrors. It's not something like Junji Ito, that crazy fucker, where you actually dread to turn to the next page because you think, I don't want to see this shit. And then you still do because of morbid curiosity and This manga, or rather short story, doesn't need grotesque pages, although it has some, as the atmosphere is intriguing enough. I'm not saying it's better than Junji Ito by any means, it just checks different boxes, which are interesting in their own way. I'll be honest, I think this manga is good, but nothing to write home about. It's just a very interesting glimpse into the world of H.P. Lovecraft's shit that I'm interested in, so I wanted to talk about it. Bye!